Hello and welcome to Music Ally Focus with me, Music Ally's editor, Joe Sparrow. And this episode, just like the Wu-Tang Clan, is for the children, or rather, the parents of those children. We're joined by the founders of Parenthood In Music, which is an initiative that aims to improve working conditions for parents in the music industry. Parenthood, they believe, remains one of the main drivers of inequality in the music industry workplace. We find out why and what changes they're hoping to make. Now, what is this Music Ally Focus podcast? Well, as you know, Music Ally provides an analysis-rich and contextual guide to the music business. This podcast is also going to be quick. It'll take about the same amount of time as André Ortolf of Germany could hypothetically eat 40 kilos of applesauce. He ate 1,163 grams in one, what I imagine is very sloppy, minute in 2016. Now, talking of biting off more than you can chew, anyone listening who has had children knows what a complicated act it is to balance work and life with children. Parenthood in Music is an initiative founded by Steffi von Kannemann, founder of the Berlin-based agency Better Things, and Marit Posch, general manager of Idol Germany and co-founder of Hyperculture. And because all of us are based in the same grimy city of Berlin, this is the first ever in-person Music Ally Focus podcast. Exciting times indeed. Now, parenthood, they say, often means that inequality gets baked into the careers of mothers and single parents, meaning that these people don't end up reaching and holding managerial positions, or they have to change to new jobs in other industries. Instead, they want to build a music industry that doesn't marginalise parents, but supports them, they say. So we wanted to find out more. Why has this happened? What does it mean? What changes should be made? And what are the benefits for the industry as a whole if it becomes more supportive to parents? Let's go over to Steffi and Marit's office right now.
Okay, well, I'm very happy to be doing my, weirdly, first ever in-person podcast after nearly 100 episodes. And here we are in Berlin, in the office of Steffi and Marit. It feels kind of weird, actually, to be talking to people in person whilst recording a podcast, but also nice. So thank you. By way of introduction, each of you tell us your backgrounds and what led you to creating Parenthood in Music.
Thanks, Joe, for inviting us to your podcast. My name is Steffi, and this is actually the Better Things office here. That's the agency I'm running together with Simone. And last year, Marit and we have officially started Parenthood in Music. But we met before, and I wanted to start Parenthood in Music because becoming a mother myself, I realized it's a big struggle because the music industry is a big struggle itself. And then having a kid or two kids is an even bigger struggle. And I also realized the struggle doesn't start by having the kids. It starts way earlier. It starts actually already when you're a child or when you are a teenager and you think of, okay, what do I want to do in life? And a lot of women decide for the security stuff, for secure jobs because they know they want to have children one day and they can't go too much risk. And which is a reason why we have not so many women in the music industry, because it's an industry with a lot of risk, with a lot of freelance work. And yeah, it also means you have to decide to have a career. And yeah, now being 40, or when I had my kids in the middle 30s, I realized there's not a lot of mothers in this industry who are also leading positions or having agencies, running labels. So yeah, this is basically something I wanted to change, because if we want to see more women in high positions, we need to tackle that topic. It's just because, of course, not every woman wants to be a mom, but a lot of them are or become a mom. And I want to see them continue having a career and not staying at home and, losing it.
Thank you, Steffi. Marit, same question to you, really. What's your background and what are you looking to do with Parenthood in Music?
So yeah, I've been in the music industry for almost 20 years now, and I've been doing pretty much everything from like label and artist management, publishing, booking. Now I'm the general manager Germany for Idol, a digital distributor based in Paris. So I've I've done a lot of different jobs, and at some point I realized that most leading positions were taken by men, and I was starting to wonder why that is. And then it's like Steffi said, I came to the conclusion, it's like really easy to see that at a certain point women kind of disappear. They are there in the lower levels, management levels, and then when they hit like 30, 35, they might want to start a family, and then they are gone. They go on maternal leave and either never come back or change careers or start part-time, and that's it. And I was also surprised that no one really talked about it, because I have 2 kids as well. And I was lucky enough to be in environments where other people had kids too. So I was kind of privileged, but I talked to others and realized, they don't even talk about it, and there's no support system. And this is something I really want to change, and hope that with Parenthood Music we can initiate changes and start a discussion basically.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good starting point. For clarity, we're all parents here. So this is something that when you mentioned it to me, Steffi, when we spoke about this a couple of months ago, it immediately resonated, because there is seemingly a strange relationship between parenthood and the music industry, and it's almost not spoken about. It's the kind of dynamic between people who do and don't is never really talked about, and the impact of children, it's sort of brushed aside. Maybe it's not cool, I don't know, it's something ridiculous like that. But you were starting, Steffi, to explain there about, and Marit, you touched on it, the impact you're seeing of parenthood on women in the music industry. Can you perhaps expand that a little bit and sort of explain what the conversations you're trying to open up are?
I mean, the conversation that we're trying to open is, first of all, to talk about it, to talk about that this is a problem. Not being a parent is a problem. The problem is that, especially, women in our culture, which is in Germany, it's very traditional. Marit and I, we're both from East Germany, and I can feel that often when we talk about things, because for us, we have grown up in a world where it was completely normal that our mothers were working. And so growing up in the GDR was not as traditional as maybe you would grow up in West Germany. And when I talk a lot also with young women, it's kind of revolutionary as a woman becoming a mother and go to work and have a full-time job. Like, even those who are feminists, they find that very radical. And for Marit and I, it's completely normal. So for me, when I grew up, and we grew up in 2 different worlds, but I was a teenager in the western part, and becoming, like 20, 30. And I saw it more and more that, it's weird because women stay at home when they have a kid. It's impossible, to have a career, to make money, it was something that wasn't really lived, by someone for me. Maybe by celebrities, maybe Beyonce does it, but, I'm not Beyonce, and so it has always been something that there was somewhere, and that, of course, kind of indirect decides for yourself what you want to do with your life. Like it's often, for example, that women decide to be a nurse, not a doctor, because they know it's hard, and I'm the one that probably has to take care of the kids, So, and this is like those reasons that we don't have enough women in the music industry, and that we don't have enough women in the leading positions, is because, like, one of the problems is because women are becoming mothers, and so we need to change this from on so different levels. It's the personal level to say, okay, I have a baby, let's share it, in private, let's share it, and the times, and we both manage it. You stay at home, I stay at home, this is the personal level. Then we have the political level, that has to kind of open up the possibilities to to push equality, you know, to say, hey, when a man stays at home with a kid, the family gets more money, for example, or we force the man to stay at home, you know, or whatever, you know, there's a lot of ways you can do that. And the third level is the music industry as, like a system that needs to be more sensitive to the topic that people have different lives, you know, and you don't need to have a baby at home. It can also be your sick grandmother or mother at home. It can be someone else that, or something else that takes up a lot of time, you know, and takes up a lot of mental health from you. So the music industry and the companies where you work in need to get more sensitive for this topic, that we need a good environment, you know, to have a career, and that we need to look at who we book for festivals, you know, who's our audience, all these things. I think this is what we want. Like for Marit and I, we're just two people, you know, we're not a big political institution. So we're kind of tied with the power we have. But starting the conversation, and we have done that last year. We've traveled around a lot of festivals. We've opened up a conversation, and I am personally so surprised how many people, and especially how many men, really are interested in this topic and really want to change something. Right, Marit?
What has been the response of people when you've started talking about this? You know, Steffi was saying that this is about starting a conversation, and it has been a welcome conversation. So, what have people said to you when you have initiated it?
I mean, overall, it has been only positive, I have to say. Like, people are really interested. And for me personally, I think one of the most touching moments was when a guy came up to me, and he's in his like mid-50s maybe, and was like, I have 3 kids and I've been in the industry for more than 30 years and I've never talked about having kids. And to me, it was so sad, because it's like, why? It's such a big part of your life. Like, how can that not be part of a conversation? Or because especially in the music business, and I think this is really special about that industry, it's a people's business. It's very personal. You know, you are friends with a lot of people you work with, and it's all like very informal, and you talk about things. You also talk about personal things. So why wouldn't you talk about having kids? That felt really weird. And he was so relieved, which made it even sadder in a way, but also good for us to see that people really want to talk about it. And when we give workshops or panels, then it's always very emotional. So people really open up, and even if, no matter if they have kids or not, because, you know, they have parents. So this kind of parent-kid relationship is there with everyone. And or thinking about having kids, starting a family, that's really something people want to talk about. And I think what's needed is really to start talking about it, because this will already change things. You know, if like a manager or someone in a high management level position has kids and is open about it, then there's more empathy for the people working with that person.
Yeah, and we can already see it and witness it, that I mean, Marit and I were giving workshops also to companies in the music industry, and the situation we have now is that companies are coming up to us and say, hey, we want to solve this problem because we see that mothers are leaving, or also fathers, like people are leaving as soon as they have kids, because they cannot imagine to work here anymore, because it's too hard to book a festival, whatever, you know, basically jobs that involve a lot of like long timings, working in the night, you know, having hard shifts, you know, all these kind of things. And the situation now is that you need every good person that you can find, you know, because good stuff gets rare. And we can really feel this, like ever since we started, that something has changed, and that now people know that we're here. They are really asking us for help. You know, how do we deal with with parents, how do we make their job more comfortable? How can we motivate them to do a good job, and because people with kids want to work. Like, we don't want to stay at home, we want to work. We just want to be able to combine it. We want to be a good mother and we want to be a good worker, and you need to find ways to combine it. It's not just simply happening like that. You cannot combine it when you work 50 hours per week. It's just not possible. It's not possible to work 50 hours and to be a great mom or to be a great dad, because you need to be there. So you need to really think of solutions, and this is why we're here, to keep the good people in your company, but to make them more comfortable and motivated.
It's clear from what you're saying, and I think this is resonating with a lot of people, that the music industry is, in general, there are exceptions, but in general has had unreasonable expectations of what parents can do, in the sense that you said there, you can't work 50 hours a week and have a healthy relationship with your children or in your family life. And yet it feels like maybe it's been presented sometimes to some people as, well, you can either have this or this, but we can't find a balance. And that says a lot about the mentality of the music industry, perhaps. But it is also encouraging that people want to make these changes, right? Or they want to find, or they're acknowledging this and want to make a change. So when someone comes to you and says, hey, I run this business in the music industry, and I have parents working for me, and what do I do? What kind of advice can you give them that helps them, beyond talking about it, that sort of helps them navigate that relationship between them and their workers, and make them happy so that they can have that relationship?
I think, and that adds to what I said earlier, what's really special about the music industry is that it's really informal, and it's about hanging out and, making deals at night at a club, at a venue, like traveling with an artist or a band or going to conferences, festivals. So it's really more like a nightlife business, which makes it especially difficult for parents. So, but this is something that is not really necessary to do your actual work. Of course, it's always nice and kind of necessary to socialize, but you don't have to talk about important deal points at a bar at 2 a.m. at night, right? So you can do that at 3 p.m. in your office. And those are like little things where you can say, okay, we have like a core period between 10 and 3 p.m. where we do meetings. Anything else is an exception we can agree on, but if it's not possible, it's not possible. We don't answer any emails after 6 p.m., like little things, which I think everyone would benefit from, not just parents, but that are so implemented in our industry for some reason that everyone takes it for granted and think that's the way it has to be. And it will stay forever, but I don't think it's true. And I think, those are the things that could change, and that would mean a lot to parents, being more flexible. I think the pandemic helped with that, being like flexible with office hours and things like that. So those are like the main things we could pretty much tell everyone, like make sure parents or everyone is more flexible. You have core times for meetings, please try to make everything happen during the day. See how much traveling really needs to be done. Be moderate and very open with like sick days, maybe you can still work from home. Really little things that, because I've experienced it with the company I worked for when my kids were small. That was kind of the normal thing. Like if I had to leave at 2 p.m. I could, because they knew I would do my work anyways later on. And those really being more flexible and having a general understanding of the situation, I think that's the first starting point.
I think one thing that would also be helpful is shared leaderships or shared positions, because when I talk a lot with people, young people without children, their biggest problem is that they feel they have too much work on their hands. And which is, of course, on the contrary, a problem, because we have less and less people who are good. So, and we have more and more people. And then, how do we solve this problem? But the solution is not to put all the work on this one person, on this one good person I have. So I really think that this shared position thing is good to take the pressure out of people. And I mean, we're looking at the new generation, and the new generation, they don't want to work until they burn out, like this is a mentality that's kind of behind us now with COVID as well. Like COVID really helped. We want to live and we want to have a nice life. And so, I mean, this is a privilege we have here, in Germany. And so I think, instead of thinking of how much more work we can put on people, burn them out, get new people, we should really think of structures and solutions that give us all better conditions and a better environment to get better, because sure, we can only get better if we feel well. So thinking about right now, super current is the question of a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week, Of course, we need to, deal out, like, in the end, like, we need to deal out the facts. Like, are we going to work 40 hours in 4 days? And no, we don't want to. Of course not. And we want to work less hours with the same salary. But then we have to look, okay, we're talking about people working in companies here. What about the freelancers? So it's very complex. And this is really a challenge that Marit and I have often, because the music industry is so wide. Like, you have artists, you have people working in companies, you have people working live in the live industry, you have people working in a label. Those are completely different worlds. And that's why it makes this topic so complex. And that's why we sometimes feel it's so much, you need to handle.
Okay, and just to jump in here, if you're finding this useful and you'd like more of this in-depth news and trusted analysis waiting for you in your inbox every morning, as well as access to all of our industry-leading reports, head on over to musically.com/subscribe. And you may be eligible for a free Music Ally subscription via our corporate and sponsored subscriptions. So if you work for a DSP, a major label, an indie label, or if you're an artist manager, an employee of a CMO or a publisher, you can check to see if it's available for you. It's musically.com/subscription-options. There's a link below the podcast to check out as well. Okay, let's go back to the interview.
If perhaps someone is listening and they're saying, okay, I do want things to be different. I'm sure that they might find that quite, for some people, difficult to talk to their employer about, okay? And to say, look, hey, I'm struggling, I'm a parent, I'm trying to balance this and it's hard. Do you have any advice for those people on ways to either approach that or get support around it?
I mean, first of all, I think it shouldn't be a problem to talk to your boss about it, because it's a need you have, and it's a necessity really to be able to do your job, right? So, and the thing is, what we noticed that, and including us, people want to work. It's not like you become a parent and you want to stop working. No, like being on maternal leave was, for me, very boring. I was so looking forward to going back to work, and I love my job. So I think this is true for most people. So for an employer, I think it's important to listen and to give options for those people to really juggle their family life and the work. And then what we also tell, like, companies for the staff, they should open, I don't know, Slack channels or just network, because sometimes it's, I'm sick, or maybe your child is sick too, or we need to be there at night, so maybe pull in on a babysitter or things like this. I think a network is always great. Also to just share ideas. I mean, there's the She Said So Parenthood Committee, and they just opened a WhatsApp group, for instance. So I don't know, there are like a couple of people in there, and they also say, oh, I had such a bad day, this happened, do you have any advice? And sometimes it just needs that. You need to talk about it, get advice, being heard. and then your life is so much better. And those are the little things that are easily overseen, but that are really important, like beside the structural changes that needs to be done, what we talked about.
Steffi, if we look forwards, we look to a better industry, we're talking about change here, we're talking about finding a better structure, which is a big deal thing. But if you could look forwards 10 years into the future, what would be the indicators that positive change has happened? And what does a better industry look like in that sense?
Well, my dream industry would look like that. I work in a company that has kind of like a small group or institution that takes care of the topics of parenthood and mental health and diversity. Because parenthood is part of these big topics. It's part of the topic of mental health, and equality, equity. So I have someone I can talk to when I have problems. So basically a mentor or a person that works in this company that takes care of it. I have a network I can talk to, like Marit just said, I just don't feel alone with my problem, and I can freely talk about it. So this on the company side, and with all these like structural changes that we already talked about, having meetings during the day, having the job doesn't depend on just me as a person. I don't have to travel too much. But of course, this also changes. Your kids are not just like 2 your whole life, they become 10 and then you want to travel again, it's like, but I have to decide when I want that. And then on the artist side, because this is really something where we have a lot of people at our workshops who struggle. Artists, whenever they are able to get funding, they should be able to ask for babysitter, for support on tour while they're touring. When I, as a person working in the music industry, when I get invited to a festival, I want the festival have fixed guidelines already standing in the signature. I don't want to be asked, are you mom or not? I want these guidelines having in their signature standing that when I'm a delegate and I need to bring my kid, I can just easily do that. I get a better or a family friendly accommodation. I can, when you go with a train, you don't even have to pay it, you can just bring them. And I get babysitting or childcare there, whatever I need, I want this to be a topic that you can freely talk about, that you don't have to be ashamed of, that's just part of your life. And it's not, as I said before, it's not part of my life all my life. It's just this phase that I'm in right now. In 10 years, I'm going to be not a completely different person, but I'm not going to be a mom with 2 small kids anymore. I have bigger kids, and then I have, other problems. But it's really just a phase, and I really want people making decisions understand that, and people who also get funding to understand that this is a phase and that's not a disease, And this is really the music industry. I want to see that I can be free as everyone else, and that I'm not uncool because I wanted to have kids. It's just something that's there, it's a part, like all the other parts as well of our lives, because I'm not just a mom. I'm so many other things, So that is maybe now the industry that I can imagine. Marit, what about you?
Yeah, definitely more women in higher positions and more female artists or non-binary artists on stages. So ideally, in 10 years, all festival lineups are 50-50. The staff is 50-50. There are artists, of course, bringing their kids along, festivals providing the means for that. The booking agents, having the same setup internally, so that everything is really more equal and balanced, and seeing especially women in like their middle age in high management positions means that they were able to have both like kids and a career in their 30s, because that's when a lot of women especially drop out and stop, and then you can't just pick up 10 years later. That's not possible. That's not the way it goes. So that's why we don't see those women right now, because at some point they dropped out, or they worked part-time, or were kept in like lower positions. And you can see that, I mean, everywhere you look around, 80% at least are just male people. So this is what I really want to see. I don't want to be one of the few women in high management positions in the music industry. Being a mom, I mean, as Steffi said earlier, you don't have to have kids, but this is just one more barrier you have to overcome as a woman, especially to have a career.
Thank you. Yeah, and it does also seem like this is part of a wider cultural change that I think you put your finger on there, and so did you. That we're sort of aiming to get towards, which is, you said, people don't want to work 5 days a week; they want to work 4 days a week. People are not so interested in old ideas around sort of ultra hedonism and children not being cool, and these are large scale changes that I think we're witnessing. And really interesting there, Marit, you said about that actually there is having women in senior positions is both an indicator that change is happening, but also once women are in those senior positions, they can then solidify those changes and make them happen and be normal, right? Because they're making the decisions from on high. So, and that coincides with a lot of other big ideas that people want. They want more representation of women in senior roles for all sorts of reasons. But it's clear that it also connects at this small scale to parenthood as well. Well, look, thank you ever so much for describing all this. I think it's a really important and interesting conversation. I will put some links to you both and, of course, Parenthood in Music below the podcast, and encourage people to reach out and read the information and all the resources you've got on Parenthood in Music. And I guess perhaps they can reach out to you as well if they want any more advice or help on that issue as well.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And yes, as you said, everyone can just reach out to us for help, advice, workshops.
And there we go. So if you found that useful, please share this podcast on with someone else who you think will also get something out of it. And if you'd like to email me and give me your thoughts, it's joe@musically.com. That's joe@musically.com. Don't forget, we have a free weekly email called The Knowledge, which rounds up a bit of this and a bit of that, of the best analysis, news, marketing, insight, and skills from Music Ally. There's a link below the podcast, so sign up and impress your boss. And don't forget as well, you can check out to see if you are eligible for a free Music Ally subscription. That link is also beneath the podcast. So that's it from me, Joe Sparrow. Until next time, farewell.